Why do
Mhm.
you think, and I know plenty do, right? You work with a bunch of great clients. I know that. But why do you think there's some business leaders out there, organizations out there who don't think those things can go together? Like, why do you have that challenge of trying to get them to understand the value of love and understanding themselves and, the things that we're talking about? Is it that they just have this myth that profitability and that don't go together? Is there truth to it where there's things that have to be accounted? Like, why is it that they don't see the value of it?
Yeah, I think that it's because there's not a lot of people that do both. If you think about the world,
Yeah,
there's not a lot of people who can do both.
that's interesting. And you take the optimistic view of that because somebody could take the cynical view and say there's not a lot of people that do both because you can't do both. That's why you don't see it out there.
Right.
You take the view of we can do it. It's just what it's hard. It's hard to do both.
It takes a very aware and conscious human to do it.
Hmm.
Because like I think about the world sometimes in a really like bird's eye meta view of like there's people I used to use like the Eastern and Western culture and civilization of how we fundamentally source from different beliefs, and we see it in the way that we self-organized around religion, how we value economics. Like how can one planet have half of a world operate in one way and another the other? And of course, like there's like the yin yang, there's dots of both on each side, but primarily different ways of operating. I see that as also in humans, you have people who dedicate their life to healing, coaching, like, the abstract, like acupuncture, yoga, Tai Chi, like this, like discipline of like all around consciousness and healing. And then you have a whole business community that dedicates their life to profit, driving like, modern society forward. Great. Neither one of these, like, if you think about it, what the people over here need are money, they need stability, they need momentum. What the people over here need, they need purpose, they need love, they need vision. They're existing in two different communities. And the crux of it is because usually when you're gifted, like you have different skill sets, you're not always sourcing from the same place. These people source from their like what I would call like the bottom energy centers, and these people are sourcing from the top. And when you need them to work together, it's all in the heart. It's all about relationships, community, storytelling, sharing perspective, building bridges. This work of building bridges, sharing stories, creating community is a very feminine principle. It's something that society has been pushing down for generations. It's coming back. You can see it, you can sense it. The feminine principle is coming back and it's trying to find balance with the masculine principle. But for a human to have both,
Hmm.
consciously aware of both energies in lockstep with them, aligned and lit up, they've done tremendous work on themselves and they've taken devotion in their growth. It's a very different way of operating in the world. If you can do that and build a business, you're full-time dedicated to a cause that is greater than yourself. And when I say like there's not a lot of people that do this work, I mean there's not a lot of people who are on purpose every day. And that's the good thing and the bad thing about scaling something like BizLove,
Because
because we are one to many, because
hmm,
we are rare, but it's hard to find people who can practice this and actually deliver the work that we want to sell
oof,
because it's rare.
that's an interesting. Well, firstly, you said it like a purpose greater than you. Is there a sense of like obligation almost like because you have the ability to do it? And I know you say that, I say that for you in the most humble of ways, right? Because you have to be humble to be able to do this. It can't be like I'm great at this. I know I'm
Right.
great, but you do have the ability to do it. Is there an obligation of like I have to do this work? There's no choice for me but to do this. Yeah,
Yeah. It's the choiceless choice.
choiceless choice.
Yeah.
And what? How do you feel about that? Is it a because you could have a choiceless choice and feel like shit, I got to do this, or you could be like shit, I can't wait to go do this.
Oh my gosh, there's so many days when it's both. I think me and on a good day is I am fully devoted to the cause. Me on a bad day is who made me like this? Why me?
Mm-hmm.
Like I think and I think that is true for everyone at BizLove. I think and anyone who joins our team is why is this so hard?
Huh.
Why is there no set framework? Like, why can't we just come to an answer? Why are we always in the gray? It's because it's both. It's
Yes.
both.
Yes.
And when it's both, life is not clean.
Yeah.
It's complex.
Yes.
And for you to understand how to move through that is a different way of being.
Yeah. And then to help a client see that too, like it's not just you in isolation trying to do that. You're trying to do that in service of somebody else.
Right. And then you're like the one setting the container for another person to go on this with you. And there's so much service in that
Mm,
too.
mm.
That's outside of just you signing up for what we're working on. And it's so funny because I think this is like the only like podcast that would actually hold the gray the way that you do, because like you're not like, but what is it? Because most people want to just tell me the answer, and it's like it's both.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I've always thought this about you, having gotten to know you now as long as I have. There is like there's that first let me say it this way. I think what makes you special, what makes Biz Love special is your ability firstly to be aware of the fact of like there's some days that I'm like, why did I have to have this and have to deal with this? To be aware of that, to be willing to admit it. I have to believe clients, people that engage with you, that like sincerity, that genuineness, that awareness is so like it gives the credibility you need to be like, all right, I'll listen. Let me hear it. I may not understand feminine and masculine energy. I may not understand the energy set. But like that authenticity and that realness, like there's something there. I want to hear it. So I think that's a big piece of it. And I've always thought that of you. I think I've said this to you before. Like there's one half of you that I look at you and I'm like, you're a conqueror. Literally, you are a conqueror, right? Some people have a visual of that, of like Vikings back in the day and whatever. But like you, if you want to achieve something, you have that, like a lot of people will call it like a dog inside of them. Like you have that dog inside of you that you can fight through whatever hell and shit you got to get through to get to it. But then there's this other side of you that's like, I think you've said this too. Like I could see you living a life easily, just on a beach somewhere, just like living off the land, just like in peace and harmony, and just kind of bringing love into the world in some small ways. And to have both of those in one, I think that's an illustration of what you're talking about, of what that looks like. And I could feel that even as I explained that, I could feel there is a burden in that. There's a little bit of a burden of trying to manage those two sides, right?
Yeah, and you're a special soul to be able to see that in me. So yeah,
Mm,
and the fact that you worked at BizLove is like the value of like the so what of the fact that we're in this conversation, the fact that you can mirror that for me, the fact that you're that. It's
mm,
like yes, and all of that exists at BizLove is
yes.
the truth of what we're building, and it is a burden, 100% some days.
Mm,
It's a
mm.
burden not only at work, it's a burden to exist in the
Yeah,
world. Like you
yeah.
are two things in one, 100%.